guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me Maliza and I hope you're doing very well today. Recently somebody noticed I was using a white tooth comb when I was doing a hairstyle and they wondered about that. So in today's video I'm going to talk about styling and detangling tools and I'll share some tips of what I do. I usually get a lot of people telling me how they lose a lot of hair whenever they brush and comb their hair. Granted, there are a number of reasons why that may be happening and one of them may have to do with the tools that you're using. I have grouped my styling and detangling tools into 3 groups. The first ones have to do with your hands, and then the combs, and lastly, the brushes. Your hands. You can't go wrong with your hands as a styling and detangling tool. Not only do you have more control when you're using your hands, but they're also perfect for patiently loosening any snags or knots that you may run into. I do, however, need to mention that if you're going to be using your hands to detangle or style your hair, make sure the pads are nice and smooth and moistened. Make sure that you don't have any calluses on them. If you have long nails, make sure you don't have any splits in there because your hair could actually get stuck in there and that's rough on your cuticles and it could also tear your hair. Next, your combs. I happen to use 3 kinds of combs whenever I'm styling and detangling my hair. I use my rat tail comb to make nice clean lines when I'm doing a hairstyle. I use my afro comb for neatening any hairstyles I have, especially if it's an afro. I usually comb the tips of my hair and that usually neatens it if I'm using an afro comb. Most of the time, I use my white tooth comb. 95% of the time, I'm using my white tooth comb to style and detangle my hair. When it comes to selecting the tools for combing your hair, the thing you need to consider for afro textured hair is the space between the teeth. The closer together the teeth, the more likely it is that your curves and curls in your hair are actually going to get stuck between the teeth. You're also going to end up with lots of knots, and you're probably going to tear your hair and you're going to take a longer time trying to comb your hair using a rat tail comb or a comb that has teeth that are close together. I have with me a rough textured braid. It happens to have the same texture as my own hair. It has more curves and curls. So I'm just going to give you an example of what I'm talking about. If I use the rat tail comb and I try to comb this braid, as you can see, it kind of gets stuck. What I'll need to do if I was using a rat tail comb, I'd have to first get rid of all the snags and curls. That's because the curls are not passing through the teeth. And this will take longer and I'm more likely to actually tear more of my hair. If I was to use a white tooth comb to comb my hair, one thing you need to notice is that the space between the tips is bigger. And so that means that my curls will find it easier to pass through the tip. So if I was to do the same demonstration, as you can notice, I'm using the ends of course, as you can notice the hair actually passes through a bit more easily compared to what would happen if I was using a rat tail comb. Another thing you need to consider when you're choosing your comb, make sure there are no seams that are running along your comb. When I'm talking about seams, unfortunately none of my combs actually have any seams, but if you ever go to some shops, you'll notice that when you're buying a comb, when you're looking at combs, they usually have a very thin plastic layer along the sides of the comb or also along the teeth. That little thin layer is a seam, and usually that is a very rough seam and it can actually tear your hair. So make sure that you don't have any seams that are sticking out on your comb. Make sure you buy yourself a very good quality comb. Otherwise you end up using more hair. Lastly, let's talk about brushes. When it comes to brushes, I have 2 main kinds of brushes that I have. I have the hard brushes, for lack of a better word, and I also have the ones that are very soft. I have a soft bristle brush and a toothbrush. Now when I'm using the hard brushes, and when I'm talking about hard brushes, the things you need to think about with afro textured hair is that you need to make sure that they don't have round tips, because what happens as you're brushing your hair, the hair gets tangled on those tips and you end up tagging on the hair and tearing it. So make sure that the spikes of your brushes are actually nice and smooth and they don't have any rounded tips. The other thing you need to consider about your brushes is the same thing that I talked about with the combs. Basically, how closely spaced are the spikes. If you look at these 2 brushes, these ones are not as closely spaced as these ones. I use this brush for actually scrubbing my scalp. As I mentioned, I do have problems with dandruff, and yes, I know we're supposed to use your fingers, but I feel like as if that doesn't work for me, so I end up using this just to help me with scrubbing my scalp and getting any of the dead skin off. that's what I use this one for. However, when it comes to detangling, I prefer to use this one. I hardly use it though. I always use my white tooth comb, but if it comes to detangling, I'm more likely to use this kind of brush because again, the spikes are so nicely spaced and my hair can flow freely through the spikes. Now, when it comes to smoothing my edges or my hairline, it's better for me to use a soft bristle brush. Most times I use a toothbrush because it's nice and small, but if I don't have a toothbrush, I'll use my soft bristle brush to just smoothen the edges and the hairline. So that's basically it in terms of the tools that you use for styling and detangling. One thing I'll have to mention though, whenever you're actually combing or brushing your hair, if it's not blow dried or straightened yet, the best thing for you to actually do is to make sure that your hair is moistened, because that makes it easier for the combs or the brushes to flow smoothly through your hair. So I never really ever brush my hair when it's dry, unless if I blow dried it. I never brush my hair or comb my hair when it's dry. I would love to hear from you guys. What kind of tools do you like to use when it comes to styling and detangling your hair? And did you enjoy the information I shared with you in this video? If you want to hear more hair talks from me, let me know in the comment box down below. Like and share this video with your friends and subscribe to get more videos from me. Thank you once again and see you next time. Bye.